All right, today I'm going to finish up In and Out, and I have an extremely complicated message, and my head is spinning. I've been up all night. I got this cold. Everybody's got it, but you ought to have to remember things while you have it. So I'm going to do the best I can, and if I don't get it, we'll just do it again next week. We'll just do it till we get it, if that's okay. So there's a few things I want you to get. I hope that what I say today will impact you in some way. I hope it'll light a fire in you to pursue seeking God, seeking truth. I think that really the seeking is what we miss in church. We show up and we want to receive. But if we showed up seeking, it would be a whole different environment. If we showed up pursuing, it would be different than showing up to let it come to you, so to speak. So today I hope that it'll light a fire in you, that you may see something that you've never seen before, and I hope you do. I want to try to be as clear as possible because I don't want to confuse anybody. And there's no real point in coming to church and getting confused. So I'm not that smart, and I don't try to be smarter than anybody else. I don't feel like I'm superior in any way, especially when it comes to this book, because I'll be honest with you, if most Bible teachers were extremely honest, they would have to go back and say, what I taught you 2 or 3 years ago, I don't believe anymore. If you're really moving and you're really pursuing God, you can't stay stationary. So I try to bring you on the journey with me, and I want you to understand this is where I'm at today. So I want to try to communicate where I'm at today, where I'll be a year from now. Hopefully it's not in the same place I am today. And I'm learning, and we all should be. I don't like the idea of going to a school, getting everything I need to know, coming and telling you about it for the next 20 years. It doesn't make any sense to me. God, in my experience, God is forever moving, and I'm forever pursuing. And so I think if we approach God with that kind of attitude, we may be in better shape. If we approach the Bible not reading it or studying it or going through it as if we already know all the answers, but truly asking what is the truth that I need to see here, I think we'll be a lot better off. I'm going to start today in an English Standard Version, and I'm going to start in Matthew, the book of Matthew. And I have a point today, but I also have to teach some things to make my point. So I'm going to do a little teaching, and I'm going to make a point. All right. And so we're not just here, I don't want you to come to church and just learn something. I'll get to that in a minute. I want to say something I'm going to hold back on, if my mind remembers. You know, I don't always remember things. In Matthew chapter 7, this is part and very near the Sermon on the Mount. Now, whether this was an actual single message Jesus taught or whether it was a collection of messages, we don't really know for sure. The point of Matthew's writings is to convince the Jews that Jesus was Messiah. So we don't know a lot of the details of this message. We do know that he taught down by the lake shore quite a bit. So, and from John's writings in the book of John, he says that if I wrote down everything Jesus taught and said, there aren't enough books in all the world to hold what he says. So Jesus must have talked like me a lot and fast. I don't know. But I do know that in this message, Jesus basically outlined everything that we need to know to make life work. And so it's a really good message he gives. But this part I want to talk about today, and this isn't the point, but this is Jesus teaching about what I need to make a point about today. So in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15, it says this: beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. All right. Who is Jesus talking about? Any idea? Pharisees, okay? Pharisees, Sadducees, religious people, evil people who are coming, sharing the gospel. Beware of false prophets. Okay. So what I want to get here, and we'll keep it on simplest of terms. Jesus is talking about people, right? The reference here is Jesus is referring to people. I want to make sure we get that up front because the next statement we could get squirrely. He says this, you will recognize them by their fruits. All right. We're talking about people, okay? But Jesus likens people to what? To trees that bear fruit. So Jesus says, beware, you will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? I really don't know. I really don't know. That wasn't in the Bible. I'm saying I don't know. I'm assuming that the answer is no. By the reading here, I'm assuming the answer is no. I don't even know what a thistle is. So I told you, man, we're all right there together today. Mine's just not working. So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear good fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will recognize them by their fruits. Jesus is talking about people, right? So a good tree bears good fruit. Well, what then would be fruit? Actions, words, our lives, the lives we live out, right? It is maybe an influence. Like our fruits are our influence, the way we influence the culture around us, the people around us, our families, our friends, and the culture. So our fruits then would be the produce of who we are, what we actually produce in this world. Now, Jesus didn't switch from talking about people to all of a sudden becoming a farmer, right? We would think that Jesus is continuing to talk about people, so he is likening people into bearing fruit. All trees bear some kind of fruit. Good fruit or bad fruit is what he's saying that these trees are bearing. So he's talking about people, and he's talking about you will know people by the kind of influence and lifestyle that's shown to be evident. Maybe it's more like I can't really tell what kind of tree it is until I see the fruit. Like I don't know trees. Like my dad, he could probably drive down the road and go, that's a pecan tree, that's an apple tree, that's a peach tree. I'd be like, how do you know? I have to go there. Oh, it's got pecans, therefore it's a pecan tree. It's got oranges, that makes it an orange tree. So it seems to be that the tree is identified by what kind of fruit it produces. And what Jesus is saying is that apple trees don't produce oranges. So you'll know the trees by their fruit. So what he's talking about is you will know the people. You will know people by their fruit. All right, that's important. Keep that in the back of your mind. I want now to go to Revelation, the book of Revelation. Everybody likes Revelation. I'm going to put a sign out by the road going, we're having Revelation Sunday because everybody will come. And it's the revelation, so like whatever God reveals to you, you can talk about, and that's the revelation, right? So it'll be tricky though. It might be tricky. I don't like tricking people into coming to church, but I might do it. Just to see what happens. All right, in Revelation chapter 21, Revelation chapter 21 is the end of the Bible, okay? It's not only the end of the Bible, but it's the end of the apostles who walked with Jesus. It's the end of their testimony. It's also the last time we find a revelation like God speaking and says, write this down, Old Testament style. It's the last time we kind of see that happen. And so it's good to be the swan song, the end. Now, I have opinions. I think a lot of times we would understand the Revelation more if it wasn't the last book in our Bibles. I think if the Revelation was in between the Old Testament and the New Testament, we might understand it more, but because it's the end, we move everything to some other time or the end or whatever. But in this, the Revelation, this is a revealing to this guy, John, one of the apostles, I believe, one of the apostles that walked with Jesus. And he's describing to him, or he's showing him, an angel's actually showing him what's really going on. Now, I think this is important because, we know there's a spiritual realm. We believe that. I believe that. You may not believe that. I believe that there's a spiritual realm. I believe there's a physical realm because I can see it, feel, and touch it, right? Most of you guys believe there's a physical realm? Not everybody, but most of you. All right, so most people believe there's a physical realm. But just as there's a physical realm, there's also a spiritual realm. There are spiritual things that are going on. So I believe what happens in Revelation is that John has revealed to him what is really going on in the spiritual realm as he sees and has lived and experienced what's going on in the physical realm. Are you with me? All right, I don't want to freak anybody out. I believe what John is seeing is God or the angel or Jesus showing him the things that have been, that are, and that will shortly be. So because he says that. I'm not just making that up. He actually says that. He shows him these things, but he shows him what's really going on in the spiritual realm. Here's an example. John describes a rider on the white horse, a conquering king, come in on a white horse. It's funny, but as it's parallel in the physical realm, the Messiah is riding into Jerusalem on a donkey. Now everybody misses Messiah riding in on a donkey, but in the spiritual realm, this is a conquering king riding in on a white horse. So you understand where I'm coming from, that there's two pictures going on, and as you go through, and if you don't like that, then oh well, it doesn't matter. I mean, no need to fight or argue about it. But the thing is, if you'll go through and you'll read Revelation and you look at the Gospels and you look at the events going on, you can say, wow, that's what was going on here. But at that time, it was something else going on that we were missing. Now, don't you wish we could have a revelation like that? Like we could see what was going on in the spiritual world? Like somebody just say, hey, let me show you what's really going on here. It would make it so much easier, right? But we don't, so we just gotta keep living by that received faith. So as John's writing the Revelation, he's shown the conquering of the old world. And the old world passes away and the new world has come. And in Revelation chapter 21, it says this in verse 5, and he who was seated on the throne, who does that be? God, right? It wouldn't be me. He who was seated on the throne said, behold, I'm making all things new. And he also said this, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. Actually, in the King James, I think it says, it is finished. I remember a time when "it is finished" was said, right? Jesus hangs on the cross and says, "It is finished." So as we're seeing this spiritual parallel here, we see it is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I give them, I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment. So as he's showing him these things, he shows him where the conquering comes from. It's finished. And as it is finished, what is it? Everybody's always asked, what is it? We don't know. But from reading on through, you can see that God says that there will be no more curse. It is finished. What is the it that's finished? I believe the it that's finished is the curse. Okay, now if you haven't been in church before, the curse is what happened a long time ago. The curse came from the Garden of Eden. Now, Eden actually means heaven. That's Eden in Hebrew is heaven. What we would know as heaven. So the Garden of Heaven. In the Garden of Heaven, mankind falls. And when mankind falls, there is a curse that is placed. Now that curse is a heavy curse. The earth gets cursed. Mankind gets cursed. The curse is a separation from God. God moves man out of heaven and separates heaven and earth. And then earth is there, and heaven and God are here. And Eden and the world are separate. Okay? It's important to understand what the curse is. But when it's finished, heaven comes crashing into earth. Heaven and earth become one. There's a new heaven and a new earth, and the two are no longer separated, and God's no longer there, but here. And we know that. We've experienced that. We live that. Nobody has to tell us that or explain that to us. We know that our God is not somewhere else, but very real and very active in our world. So Eden has become restored, right? So here's what he says as he sees this new Jerusalem come down. He describes it in all these ways. But I want to look particularly in Revelation chapter 22, verse 1. Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, bright as a crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb, through the middle of the street of the city. Also, on either side of the river, the tree of life with its 12 kinds of fruit, yielding fruit each month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. No longer will there be anything cursed. But the throne of God and of the Lamb will be in it, and his servants will worship him. All right, now what was trees? People. Then who would be the tree of life? I would say Messiah, Jesus, the Messiah, would be the tree of life. Now the tree of life had 12 fruits. That would make sense to us, right? And the leaves of the tree of life, did y'all hear disciples? Jesus had 12 followers. And these leaves of this tree of life, the leaves from this tree would be for healing of the nations. It's pretty amazing. So in this revelation, we see that Messiah, Jesus, that New Jerusalem, heavens and earth become one, and God is seated on his throne, and Messiah is enthroned, and there's flowing out from the throne a river of living water. Now, I don't have time to go through this, but water was always words through the Bible, especially in the Old Testament where there were a lot of types and shadows given. Water always was words. Living water would be words of life. So flowing out of this throne through the new Jerusalem, the new city, would be words of life and a tree of life and fruit from the tree of life that would feed people. And are we still being fed today by the apostles? By the fruit of the tree of life. So in this time that it looks like the tree was cut down, the tree was actually planted. There was a new Jerusalem, a new heaven, a new earth, and everything had become new. Now I want to look at this in this context. Is everybody with me? Trees are people. The tree of life is Jesus Messiah. His fruit, the fruit of Jesus, is life-giving. Correct? We would say the influence or the ideology of Jesus then would be for life. And so the influence or ideology or the impact of Messiah and Jesus and his teachings, the fruit of the life Jesus left was for life, for all. So Jesus is a tree of life, he's a person, and his fruit is his actions that give life. Okay, is everybody with me? Everybody like, God, why are you going so slow? Just get to it. Suspense. All right, now I want to go back to the first. I want to go back to Genesis for a second. So we have creation account going on in Genesis. You have a creation account. God said, let there be, let there be, let there be, and it was good. Okay, I'm not going to go through all that. So then God creates people, places people in Eden. Where is Eden? Heaven, okay? So we have the Garden of Heaven, and God places people in heaven. God creates people. There's a little slice of heaven. Now heaven and earth are one. You have to understand, heaven and earth, God is among his people. Heaven and earth. Heaven is on earth. I think a lot of times we miss that. Heaven is on earth in the beginning until it gets broken. All right, so what happens then is God has man in the garden. Now, God says he formed man and he gave man. It says this in verse 8 of Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2, verse 8. And the Lord God planted a garden in heaven, in Eden. And in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground the Lord made to spring up every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. Now I think that might be a tree. Because he was like, people are going to eat each other? Like God invented cannibalism? No. I think this might be like a tree, okay? But hey, whatever, if it works for you, go with it. Now he says this, and the tree of life was in the midst of the garden. What does that mean? Who's the tree of life? You have Eden, heaven, and God plants a garden in heaven, heaven's on earth, and in the middle of the garden is the tree of life. Now, we just said that trees were what? And the tree of life was. So who was in the garden? Jesus was in the garden. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Not the knowledge of evil, the knowledge of good and evil, but I think we miss this is the tree of knowledge, which tells me that knowledge and life don't come from the same place. All right. Everybody with me?
Yes.
So you have in the garden 2 trees. Those would be two people. One, a tree of life, and one, a tree of knowledge of good and evil. Who would that be, possibly? Satan. So in the Garden of Eden, we have Satan. Satan's in heaven. Have y'all ever heard, well, this is the way it works because no evil can come in the sight of God. So God didn't look down on Jesus while he was on the cross because he took the sins of the world, and God couldn't be in the presence of sin or evil. Really? Y'all recall Satan coming to God and saying, he says, where you been? He says, I've been out roaming around the world. And God says, have you considered my servant Job? The worst words of the whole Bible. Have you considered my servant Job? God and Satan are having a conversation, and you're telling me evil can't be in the presence of God? So in the Garden of Heaven, now we have 2 trees, 2 people with 2 ideologies, 2 ways of being. The fruit of 2 trees would be their influence, their way of being, their lives, right? What they give out. So as the tree of knowledge of good and evil is there, and then on the other side we have the tree of life. And from what God is showing me is that this life in the garden wasn't a whole lot different than what we have today, because do we not have life and knowledge of good and evil? Do we not have 2 identities, 2 ways, 2 influences? So the fall comes, and when you read the fall in Genesis chapter 3, it says, I love the way, well, first of all, I love the way Genesis describes the garden, because you have a tree of life, a river of life, a river flowing out of the garden. So what we see in Revelation is a restoration of what was in Genesis. The end of Revelation, in my opinion, is the conclusion of the story. The story of the Hebrews, the Hebrew people, the creation, the fall, the restoration, and the new heaven and the new earth. And you see it all conclude and come back together. So you have this, and it says in the fall, now the serpent was more crafty than all the other beasts of the field. Now, the serpent, we can go in the Bible and we can see that the serpent is Satan, the great serpent, or that ancient serpent. You'll see him called that. And then the bird, or the beast of the fields, refers to demons. So what you have is Satan, who is more crafty than the beasts of the fields, than all the other beasts of the fields. So you have one demon that's more crafty than all the other demons. And so you have this influence, or this temptation that goes on with humans. Now, what is the temptation? The temptation is to eat of my fruit. We say, well, mankind fell because God told them not to eat the apple, and they ate the apple, right? But is that really what happened? Do you have Satan and his kingdom and his ideology and his impression and his influence? And is the fruit that he's offering the allure of wealth and power, of knowledge and fame? What is he tempting? What is mankind being tempted with? Now, I don't think it's any different than it is today. The temptation in the garden is to eat of the way of life that this tree is producing. So, as I want to make a point that to enter in, to be in the kingdom of God, and to be in Eden requires of us all, we all eat of a tree. In the kingdom of heaven, and to be in the kingdom of heaven and to be made fully alive is to eat of the tree of life. What does that mean? That means you can't live by the tree of knowledge, by eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and have life, remaining in the garden. What does that look like? What does it look like to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? It looks like religion. How many of you have tried, how many of us have tried to do better, to be good? And we balance everything out. In the religious world, everything is either good or evil. We say that person is bad because they do evil, and this person is good, so they're in, and this person does bad, so they're out. But in the garden, the knowledge of good and evil was both death. It wasn't good or evil, or it wasn't good is life and evil is death. It was the knowledge of good and evil. It was establishing a system that would justify me to say that I am good. And that makes me in. I told you when we started this series, everybody joins whatever religion that makes them in. So whatever standard of good that comes, we join up and we achieve that level of good. Because we want to be in. And we would say anybody that's evil is out, so we're in the good-evil tree of knowledge. And here's what I found in my life is that being good never gave me life. I found being good to be difficult. I don't know if anybody else has found that out. Being good was extremely hard for me. Ask my mom. Being good is extremely hard. Being evil it's kind of natural. It kind of comes natural. But the knowledge of good and evil and the stress and the worry and the work to stay in this life of good and evil, it never really worked. I'd do good for a while, but inevitably, man, I'd do bad. I was good, and then I was evil, and I was good, and then I was evil, and then I lowered what good meant so I could be gooder. But there's another way of being. It's a resurrection life. It's a new world. It's being born of the kingdom, born from above, born in the Spirit. It's coming alive, but not in the physical sense that we think of coming alive. It's coming alive in the way the Bible says it, in Messiah. In Him. And here's what I found when I was resurrected and changed and transformed. I was a new and different person, is that I loved eating of the tree of life. That the teachings of Jesus and the influence of Jesus and His apostles and the Bible is a better way to live. Like what He said was definitely true, that if you do these things, they'll give life. But if you do these things, these other things, they bring death. And the things may be good things, but just wrong things. Pursuing my kingdom, trying to make my life the best life I can make my life. Those things aren't evil. Those things are good. But I found in that pursuit that they also don't give life. No matter how hard I tried, I could not resurrect myself from the dead. I couldn't be good enough. There was an outside influence. There was an outside influence that radically transformed and changed me. And that outside influence was the Spirit of God, or the fruit of the tree of life that was given to eat of. Now, what I found in my life is that whatever I seem to focus on and pursue kind of ruled my life. So when I would try to be good, it was good, 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 fall, good, 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 fall, but it never gave life, and it was a lot of work. Maybe you're in this addiction, or maybe you're in this frustration, this depression. Maybe you're in this place in your life today, and you're focusing on conquering that thing. But listen to me, and this is truth. The more you focus on conquering that thing, the more your focus is on that thing. And you're never going to overcome that. See, God says to seek the kingdom and His righteousness. Then all these other things will fall into place. When I seek out the tree of life, when I seek the teachings of Jesus and the ways of Jesus, it's not a matter of being good. It's a matter of being in the will of God. The kingdom of heaven is neither good or evil. Remember last week we talked about the invitation to the banquet? Who was invited? Both the good and the bad. It's not a matter of being good or bad. Who are we to even say what's good or bad? Are we the moral police? Who's to say? What we're to pursue is not good or evil, not religion and rules, but an influence of the kingdom of God. When I pursue Jesus and the life of Jesus, my whole life changes. Now, do I always do it? No. You don't either, so don't condemn me. Don't judge me. You don't do it either. But I know what life is. And I know it's not in good or evil, or judging good or evil, even judging myself whether I'm good or evil. The only question I need to ask is, am I in the will of God? See, the kingdom of heaven consumes people who are concerned with being in the will of God, not people who obey rules or disobey rules. Everything has to do with eating of the influence of the tree of life. Does that make sense? Now, I know a lot of you guys are like freaking out. I don't know. I don't have a clue, and you don't either, on whether there was a real tree with real fruit. I don't know. You don't know either. But I do believe that there was a spiritual realm going on. And whether it was seen or unseen, there was a being. There were two beings in the garden with two ideologies and two influences. And that fruit of that tree of knowledge of good and evil is continuing to entice and pull people in today. All of our temptations and all of our drawing to that tree of knowledge of good and evil, that comes from hell, that comes from Satan. And where it ends up is in hell. And if you find yourself in hell, and you're just going, my life is hell, I don't know how to get out, it's a bottomless pit, it's flames, it's all these things, it's unquenchable thirst, I can't drink from the tree of life, I've got a hunger that can't be satisfied. Those things that we say all the time but don't realize what we're saying, you'll never find those things in being gooder or even judging other people for not being as good as you are. The only way you're ever going to have life is to eat of the tree of life. It's the will of God. And it's in the center of the city. It's in the middle. It's awesome, the tree of life and the rivers of living waters and all the things. Man, if you're thirsty, come to me and I'll satisfy your thirst and you'll never be thirsty again. Eat of me, eat of the bread of life, and you will never be hungry again. Are you tired of being thirsty? Are you tired of being hungry? Are you tired of wondering and waiting and wishing? Come to me and I will give you rest. Take my yoke My burden is easy. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. I'll give you rest for your souls. Don't we want soul rest? That's why these trees are so important. I hope I didn't lose you in the whole thing, but I think we have to see that God resolved the issue from Eden. In Revelation, the issue from Eden was resolved. It was resolved on the cross. The kingdom's open. The trees are in bloom. The fruit is at hand. The river's flowing. It's not sometime else. It's today. It's right here. It's right now. It's been resolved. Messiah did not fail at his job. He restored God's world to him. He restored God's kingdom to him. Heaven and earth are together again. It's a good thing. I want so bad for you to understand, and I don't feel like I can explain it adequately, but there's something in you right now drawing you to that tree. I know it is. It's just a better way of living. It's a better life. I hate to see people continue to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I hate to see people get religious and say, well, I don't drink anymore, so what? If you don't drink anymore because you overcame drinking, then you've gotten nowhere. When you're resurrected and made into a new and different person, when you're delivered from a way of being that was outside of the kingdom. I'm not saying drink and put you out of the kingdom. Why do we get so caught up on things we do? The thing we've got to do is seek the will of God in our lives. Those who are in the kingdom don't even know that what they're doing is pleasing to God. They're just doing what comes naturally. When I eat of the tree of life, I produce life. It's good fruit, right? If I eat apples, then if I'm an apple tree, if I eat of the apple tree and become apple tree, then that's stupid. That doesn't even make sense. Like an apple drops a seed and produces more apple trees, right? It's natural. It's natural. Pecans drop pecans in the ground, they make pecan trees. We got to quit working so hard. What's wrong in your lives isn't nothing that you're going to change. You're seeking the wrong things. You're looking for life in the wrong places. You're eating from the wrong trees. There is a better way to live. And when you eat of that tree, that way of life becomes natural. Your life starts to produce life. If you look around your life and all you see is death and destruction, and your influence on the world is not to restore but to destroy, then you're eating of the wrong tree. If you're hurting people, if you're destroying people, if you're ruining people's lives around you, if you're destroying your own life, you're eating from the wrong tree. The tree of life produces the fruit of life. I wish I could tell you how to do it, but you just have to be drawn into it. It's weird working with God and His grace and His Spirit because He just does it. I don't know how, or I don't know, there's no thing you can say to do. But I found that that when I realized what tree I was eating of, and I surrendered myself to God, like I don't want to be this way anymore, that's when God said, good, man, eat of this tree. He called me man. God's kind of hipster. Eat of this tree, and it's good. Man, there's a better way to live. There is a better way to live. If you guys will stand with me, man, I want to pray over you.
She said